Welcome to yet another Kirby Vacuum Cleaner repair video. In this video, I will be replacing the switch that you see right here. This connects to the foot pedal that turns the vacuum on and off. And I will also be replacing the carbon brushes while I'm at it. Now, the carbon brushes, they look like this. And what they do is they help the motor perform as it should. These do get worn down over time, and so the power and performance of your motor will be affected. So in this video, I will be doing both of these projects. So let's get started. Now what you'll need as far as tools are a Phillips screwdriver, a flathead screwdriver, and a T20 wrench. I also recommend a razor blade. I also have links to all of the parts. So let's get started. We're going to be turning what's called the belt lifter. Turn that all the way around so the arrow aligns to the removed position. And then undo this latch right there. And the brush assembly will come off. So next we will be using the T20 wrench to take off the T20 screws on the front. Now I have this hand, I use this electric drill. It's actually from IKEA. It's only $10. You can pick these up anywhere. I'll put a link in the description below for that as well. A very handy tool. It only costs about $10. Definite time saver. Then we'll be using the Phillips screwdriver to remove the top two screws. And pay attention while you are removing these screws to the size and shape of these screws so that when you put it back together, you're putting the right length and the right type of screw back in the right place. It will definitely make your job a lot easier. So as you can see, that's the Phillips, and it's beveled. It tapers in so it can fit in that spot. I also have a magnetic tool, as you saw there. That's handy to have so that you can maybe pick up a screw that's stuck, or if it falls down somewhere and you don't want it lost, then you can just use that little magnetic tool. Next, we'll be unscrewing this cover to the power cable. And then we will be unscrewing this side power cable cover. It also protects the actual plug. We will remove this back screw. And then remove the back plastic plate. And that reveals 2 screws, Phillips screws. And remove the cover plate. With the cover plate removed, you can now remove this side plug more easily. And it just unplugs, you can see there. Now let's go to the fan plate. Those screws were revealed once we took off the top cover, and they are T20. And this plate is actually sealed with the rubber material. And so that's what the gasket material is for when you put it back together. And you want to use a razor blade to clean it up once you take it off. Before we take it off, we're going to take off this light assembly. There's 2 screws just on the top, Phillips screws. So as you can see there, that's the adhesive. This is where the flathead screwdriver comes in. You're just going to kind of pry it apart, try and get it in somewhere, and then just pop it off. And when you put it back together, you'll just use a razor blade, clean up the edges. So this reveals the fan and that metal shaft. That's what the belt straps onto when it's spinning. And that fan, you want to inspect it, make sure it's not cracked or warped. If it is, it's worth replacing. The vacuum, on my previous video, I have a video of doing that, and the shaft was actually bent as well. So just inspect the parts. If they are warped, bent, cracked, chipped, or any of those blades are severely chipped, it does affect the performance of the vacuum significantly. So you would undo that bolt right there, and it spins clockwise to remove it. But we don't need to do that, so we will be skipping this part. If you want to watch how to do that, I'll show you in another video. Okay, now we are going to remove the bottom screws. These are T20. And it's those 6 screws there. Now this screw in the middle here is a Phillips screw. Next, we will be removing two Phillips screws that connect to the metal arm. Now, once we get to the point of disconnecting wires, which is very soon, have your camera, phone, or whatever you use on hand to take pictures of where exactly the wires plug in, which wires plug in how and where, so that when you're putting it back together, you know exactly what to do, and you'll be able to get a better shot than just relying on this video. Even film a little video. I do that sometimes when I'm taking things apart, so I know exactly where to put it back together. Sometimes wire colors are different, or maybe your model is slightly different than mine. So just pay attention to that. It will save you a headache and having to go back and rearrange wires and hope it works the second time around. With those screws removed, this whole top piece will come off. However, there are wires that are going through and it's actually plugged in, so you have to just be careful as you lift it off. That's one of the two wires. And the second one actually popped off right there. So there you have it. Okay, at this point you can actually see the switch and the carbon brushes. So next we will remove the power drive assembly belt, that rubber belt there. We'll take it off the gear, and we will also be lifting off the on-off switch that connects there. Now there's 2 points where it kind of locks in place and then it slides out that side arm just like that. And then it does come out, but it requires a little working, finagling, if you will. Making sure parts and pieces are out of the way. So just be patient with it as you're working it out, and it should come out. Now at this point also you want to inspect the belt. Make sure it's not cracked or breaking. And there's the brush. The two brushes, there's one on the left and one on the right. So remove these plugs from the switch mechanism. And pay attention because there's a lot of things that plug in right there. So pay attention to where exactly what plugs plug into what spot. Now we're going to use a Phillips screwdriver. And we will be removing this metal arm. Now, taking off the power switch is a bit of a process because it's such a tight fit. Just be patient with it as you work it out. And that's the old switch. Now at this point, I used my shop vac to vacuum out any dust, dirt, and debris that has collected over the years into the Kirby Vacuum. It's a good idea to do this if you don't have a vacuum. Maybe you have compressed air. And I know it's kind of funny vacuuming a vacuum, but you want to make sure that it's clean as possible. And since I have the vacuum out, I thought it would be a good time to clean up this edge. I just have a razor blade. I'm scraping off the old sealant. Just above the brush is a Phillips screw, and so we will be taking that out so that we can remove the brush. And it just comes out like that. Now these are spring loaded, and it's kind of a graphite material, just like a pencil. You could write on paper with that, but as you can see, it's worn and it's shorter. Now there's still life in the brush. However, compared to the newer one has more power in the spring and a longer carbon block. So it will push against the rotor in the electric motor more easily and increase the performance. So just push it in and then let it slip into place and then screw it back in. It's kind of tricky though, because it wants to push out. Once you have it up against the rotor, then you can let go, just hold the rest in place, put the screw back in, and then repeat this process for the other side. You also want to connect the plugs. You will also want to replace the wires. So here I'll hold up the two so you can see over time how much of the carbon has been lost just through operation of the vacuum cleaner. And that does definitely affect the performance, the strength and power of the motor, because you have less conductivity, less electricity going through. Now there's a zip tie holding this on, so I just use a razor blade to disconnect the zip tie. And then on this side, the left side, the screw is underneath the brush. And the process on the left side is just the same as the process on the right brush. Once you get it in place, hold it with one hand and put the screw in with the other. Now, yeah, as you can see, I didn't have to unscrew that one all the way. And then reconnect the wires. Next, we'll go to the power switch. You want to make sure that the metal arm is in position just like this, so it comes in from the left side and the plug is on the right side. So just put it together exactly that way and you won't have any problem. Now it's a little bit awkward because it has to fit in 3 different places. Those little prongs have to go through that hole, and the whole switch has to fit down the side, and then the actual part where the cord plugs in has to be aligned with the hole down there. So again, take your time. Don't rush it. Don't get frustrated. It will fit. It will go in. Now, as you can see, my that metal arm was dislocated as I was putting it in. That's okay. You can still fit it in. It's just a little bit more difficult, but you can still do it. You can still put it in while you're securing the switch in place. And if you notice there's a slight push forward to get it kind of locked in place. You want to make sure you get that to happen. We'll put this arm back in. When you're putting the arm back in, you want to make sure that the end of the arm is protruding to the left instead of the right, so that you can reconnect it to the power assembly, the power drive. And the prongs on your switch may be bent slightly. You want to be very careful. You don't want to bend those too much. I had to bend them back so that they would fit. But the more you bend those, the weaker the metal becomes. So reconnect the wires. I guess it would be. So connect the wires to the switch the way that you had it before. And it's worth taking a picture before you disconnect the wires so that you know exactly where they go. So with the switch wires reconnected, it is now just a matter of reassembling the whole vacuum. So I will leave this video as I'm reassembling with very, very few comments from this point out. If you like this video or you want more Kirby Vacuum videos, I will be filming Kirby repair videos as I'm doing repairs. So click subscribe and ring the bell for notifications. If this was helpful for you, let me know in the comments section below. Or if you have any questions, let me know. I also have a tip jar. Any bit helps, even just $1. You can click on that on my main channel page. There's a link right there. It helps me keep the momentum and the motivation to produce videos like this. Okay, so at this point, I get a little frustrated with the way the wires are connecting, and so just pay attention to how I do this, because the assembly that goes on top of this, it gets a little tricky. So this is where you could get, this is another point of frustration, in putting this vacuum back together. Okay, at this point, we will be putting the gasket maker onto the metal. It's all cleaned off and ready to go. This is what I'm using, and I'll put a link in the description for this or something just like it. This is actually windshield sealer, but in fact, this might be better than other things because it can withstand freezing and heat. So we'll just put this, it's actually just a silicone gasket maker, but they use this for windshields. So you want to put a bead around it. This keeps the vacuum seal as tight as possible, so all of the suction that you possibly can is actually coming out of the end of the hose instead of through these gaps. Just put a bead on there. It's okay if it kind of bleeds out once you put the connecting piece on. And just follow the directions of your silicone. You could even use caulking for this, just rubber caulking. But I had this on hand. I'm going around each bolt hole, each screw hole, which might be overkill, but that's okay. I like things over-engineered than under-engineered. I think we all do who are watching this video because we have Kirby vacuums. And you made it to the very end of this video. I don't know how many people are going to be watching this, but let me know if you did. Let me know if you made it all the way to the end, if you watched this whole thing beginning to end. I hope it was helpful for you. Thank you for watching. Hopefully I saved you a few bucks. Now you might get to this point and say, wait a minute, my vacuum's not turning on. It's because there's a kill switch. You have to have all the parts engaged in order to verify, or in order for the vacuum to turn on so that you don't have any injuries. So if you assemble it, then you'll be able to get it turned on. And that includes the handle assembly. So pay attention to that so that you don't freak out and say, wait a minute, I went to all that work and it's not turning on. At any rate, thanks for watching. Have a good day. Click subscribe if you didn't already. Ring the bell for notifications of future videos. And we will see you around. Bye.